All right, let's break this one down. Some games are just games, and then some games become legends. Today, we are talking about one of the most unbelievable, heart-in-your-throat comebacks of the entire MLS season, Inter Miami's historic turnaround against the rivals Orlando City. So to really get how massive this was, you have to start with this number right here, 0. That's exactly how many times Inter Miami had ever managed to win a game in Orlando. They'd made the trip 9 times, and 9 times they came home empty-handed. So yeah, going into this match, history was definitely not on their side. And then, by halftime, it just felt like a recurring nightmare. The scoreboard was brutal. Orlando City, 2. Inter Miami, a big, fat 0. For the fans who traveled, for the players, it must have felt like the script was already written, Just another loss in Orlando. It seemed totally inevitable. So how did it get so bad so fast? Well, this wasn't some lucky break for Orlando. No, they completely ran the show for the first 45 minutes, building a lead that honestly looked impossible to overcome. It was just a devastating 1-2 punch that put Miami straight on the ropes. First, at the 18-minute mark, bam, Marco Pasalic scores. And then, just 6 minutes later, before Miami could even figure out what hit him, Martino Heja makes it 2. It was an absolutely clinical, soul-crushing start from Orlando City. But then came the second half. And the comeback didn't start with one of the big superstars. Nope, it all started with this little spark of hope from a young player who is about to have the absolute moment of his career. Just 4 minutes after they come back onto the field, the 20-year-old forward Mateo Silvetti gets one back for Miami. And this wasn't just any goal. Get this, it was his first ever career goal. Can you even imagine that pressure? An unbelievable moment for the kid, and really, the first sign of life for the entire team. Okay, so now there's a little glimmer of hope on the board, and that's when the legend himself decides, all right, my turn. When your team is down and needs a hero, there's one person you look to, and boy did he deliver, completely flipping the game's momentum on its head. When Messi steps up, you just expect something incredible. And just wrap your head around that number for a second. 898 career goals. That's where he stood after this next play. The goal that tied this whole thing up was number 898. Just wow. This timeline really shows you the absolute onslaught that happened in the second half. It starts at 49 minutes with Silvetti's spark, then just 8 minutes later at 57, Messi hits the equalizer. It gets tense for a while, but then at the 85th minute, Telasco Segovia puts Miami ahead for the very first time. And to top it all off, in the 90th minute, Messi puts the final nail in the coffin. We're talking a 4-goal explosion in a single half. A total, complete reversal of fortune. But let's really focus on that go-ahead goal for a second, because this was the moment. This was when the comeback went from being possible to being real. It was a goal born from just pure pressure and grit, and was scored by a guy who was having the game of his life. And that hero was the defender, Telasco Segovia. And this is probably the biggest takeaway from the game. He didn't just score the game winner. He was the architect of the entire thing. He assisted on Silvetti's goal and on Messi's equalizer. For a defender to be involved in 3 goals, that is just a monstrous, game-defining performance. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for Orlando, only 3 minutes after they lose the lead, their night completely implodes. A red card, and they're down to 10 men. That was it. That sealed their fate, ending any real chance they had of fighting back. So the game's in hand. The opponent is on their knees, and it was time for just one final piece of magic. To put a big exclamation point on this absolutely historic victory. And what better way to do it? A free kick, 90th minute, you know what's coming. He steps up and just buries it. A perfect, almost theatrical ending to an unbelievable comeback. It cemented the 4-2 win and finally broke that curse in Orlando. So what was it? What was the secret? Was it some genius tactical switch at halftime? Well, according to the coach, it was something much more fundamental than that. Something human. Just listen to these words from Coach Javier Mascherano. He said, "There were no tactics. There was heart, courage, resilience, commitment. He put it all on the players. He said this win belongs to them because they simply remembered who they are, champions. This wasn't won on a chalkboard, this was won with pure, undeniable will." And that just leaves us with this one last thought. A win like this, coming from 2-0 down in a place you have literally never won before, it's not just about the 3 points, right? It's a statement, a victory of pure, raw will. So the question we're all left with is,
Is this the kind of emotional, character-building win that lights the fire for another run to a championship? I guess only time's gonna tell.